Regardless of how long you've been sewing, there are always certain portions of the process that you will enjoy less than others. These are often mandatory milestones that feel really satisfying once they are completed, but can be really dreadful when it comes to, physically executing them. I have to say, what I've always enjoyed least is the process of transferring darts from patterns to fabric. Although I do have to say that finding the marking technique that is easiest and works best for me has really helped and brought me closer to this process. By the way, the term of marking refers to transferring important marks such as dart lines or notches from your patterns to your cut fabric pieces. These marks are extremely important in the actual sewing process. They provide guidance for aligning edges, and in the case of darts, the transferred lines provide a stitching guide. Always remember that the process of marking happens after the patterns have been cut, but before they are unpinned and separated from the fabric. Transferring dart lines from patterns onto the corresponding fabric pieces is an important step in the sewing process. Just like any notations in the marking process, darts should be transferred to fabric after the pattern has been cut, but before separating it from its corresponding fabric pieces. In other words, marking, if needed, should be completed before the pattern is unpinned. So how do you transfer darts onto fabric? The method used to transfer darts onto the fabric surface should be chosen based on how well the marks would show on the fabric at hand without damaging or staining it. There are 4 main techniques you can use to mark darts. Any of these methods can be utilized as described as long as the technique chosen leaves a distinguishable marker which in turns can be efficiently used in the sewing process. Keep in mind that dart lines should always be transferred onto the wrong side of the fabric. Doing so not only facilitates the sewing process but also protects the fabric's right side. This technique works great for non-transparent fabrics that are solid in color, featuring no bold prints on their wrong side. This is the perfect technique to use in the process of learning how to sew when practicing with muslin or solid cotton fabrics. Use tracing paper that provides the most contrast against the fabric's wrong side. Luckily, fabric stores usually sell tracing paper in packs that include multiple colors. First, place the tracing paper underneath the pinned pattern at the dart location with the wax side touching the wrong side of the fabric. Use your tracing wheel to firmly trace along each dart leg and the dart fold line. The tracing wheel will leave a dotted line on the wrong side of the fabric. Make sure the vanishing point is clearly visible on the transferred dart. If the fabric is folded, you can trace the darts simultaneously by using 2 pieces of tracing paper and placing them with the face touching the wrong side of the fabric on both sides of the fold. Serrated tracing wheels are suitable with most fabrics. The downside of using the tracing wheel method is that the perforations and pressure applied will damage the paper pattern with continued use. While great for basic fabrics, the tracing wheel is not suitable for a large range of textured or boldly printed fabrics. Tracing wheel marks are also very difficult to transfer through thick fabric layers. This technique is fast, uses a small amount of tools, and is the most universal. This technique provides an easier way to mark on textured thick fabrics. The Tailor's chalk and pin technique requires the transfer of the dart's vanishing point and a few points along the dart lines. These points are then connected into straight lines directly on the wrong side of the fabric surface. Tailor's chalk leaves a thicker mark, thus it is great for textured fabrics like woolens and thick cottons. If thinner, more precise lines are required, use a quilting fabric pencil instead. In today's example, the dart is transferred to a folded fabric cut. First, turn the pinned fabric layers over such that the pattern is facing up. The wrong side of the fabric should be facing out while the two fabric face sides should be touching. Insert pins through the dart vanishing point in a push pin position. Next, insert pins at even locations along each dart line. Catch both fabric layers and the paper pattern underneath. Flip the pinned pattern over to expose the fabric layer. Mark points or dash lines with Tailor's chalk or a fabric pencil at each pin location. To transfer the pin marks to the wrong side of the other layers, you can use one of these two techniques. Unpin the pattern around the dart and mark at each pin location using your fabric pencil as shown. Leave the pattern fully pinned, but remove the pins inserted along the dart lines. Using a pin, pierce small circles through the paper pattern at the vanishing point and along each dart line. Using your fabric pencil or Tailor's chalk, mark the fabric layers through each perforation as shown. Remove all pins and separate the pattern from the fabric layers. Using a ruler and your chalk or fabric pencil, connect all the marks into straight lines. Start from the vanishing point and extend to each corresponding notch located at the seam edge. Repeat this process on both fabric layers. Tailor tacks are a great alternative for fabrics that are very delicate, heavily decorated, sheer, or unable to withstand any of the marking techniques described today. Tailor tacks are placed at evenly distributed points along each dart line and at the vanishing point to mark the general shape of the dart. Using the sharp end of your needle, create a gap through the paper at each one of these points. Insert a hand sewing needle and double thread through the two fabric layers at the pattern gap. Leave 1 inch of loose thread at the end. Insert the needle back through the fabric layers, creating a 2-inch loop. Cut the thread, leaving another 1 inch of excess on the other end. Next, carefully separate the paper pattern from the fabric layers. Start pulling the fabric layers carefully apart. As you separate, each loop flattens and its excess is pulled on the other side of the fabric. Carefully cut the loop excess threads as you separate the fabric layers. transfer dart lines on a single layer, it is easiest to use Simplified Tailor tacks. In contrast to regular Tailor tacks, this dart transferring technique is more visible and defined, allowing for more controlled Tailor tack placement. Tailor tacks usually provide individual markers and points as opposed to defined lines. For that reason, having them closer together can provide a more linear look. Simplified Tailor tacks are great for transferring marks onto single fabric layers. They are mostly used on delicate, heavily ornamental fabrics that can't withstand other transfer techniques. To transfer darts using Simplified Tailor tacks, first, using a double-threaded needle, catch a short stitch through the pattern and fabric layer underneath, directly on top of the dart line. Next, insert another short stitch at about 1 inch from the first, leaving a loop in the thread. A 2-inch loop should be enough to achieve securely positioned Simplified tacks. Continue applying the stitch loops along all dart lines. Using scissors, carefully clip through the middle of each stitch loop on the pattern side only. Gently pull the paper pattern away from the fabric layer underneath. The Simplified Tailor tacks will be left behind at each clip location.